Hi, I'm Movie Man. I'm an octopus who reviews movies, and today's review is going to be on
I need you to trust me. One last time.
So, here we go now. Here we finally are. So the Mission Impossible franchise. Just to quickly give my thoughts on this franchise as a whole. I honestly love it. This is definitely honestly one of the best blockbuster franchises out there, honestly. Like I mean I think the first few movies or so were not great but decent enough, but honestly I feel like this franchise has just gotten better as it's gone on. Which I know is honestly quite rare for a franchise or something, but yeah, these movies have just gotten better as they've gone on with plenty more fun action. And how can we forget Tom Cruise literally doing the most insane stunts that you've ever seen? Yeah, honestly, these movies are just a freaking blast to watch. But obviously, as you guys will remember, nearly 2 years ago now, I still cannot believe it's been nearly 2 years at this point. But yeah, nearly 2 years ago now, in July of 2023, we got the last Mission Impossible, the seventh movie, Dead Reckoning. And if you guys will remember the review that I did for Dead Reckoning back when it came out, y'all will remember that I honestly loved that movie when it came out, yeah. And I did a rewatch of the full franchise there, and yeah, honestly, I still think these movies are just an absolute blast to watch, and yeah, I still love a lot of them, and I do love Dead Reckoning as well. But yeah, now with this new film, because obviously with the previous movie being Dead Reckoning Part 1, obviously this new one now was supposed to be a follow-up to Dead Reckoning. It was going to be Dead Reckoning Part 2, and both of these movies were basically going to be a two-part finale to the series. But I mean, yeah, obviously I know that this one kind of went through a bit of struggles during production, because I mean, obviously I know this movie was actually supposed to come out last year. I think it was supposed to come out June 28th of last year, but then the movie ended up getting pushed to this year, on May 23rd. And yeah, obviously they actually changed the title of the movie from Dead Reckoning Part 2 to now The Final Reckoning, which now makes the fact that the previous movie is called Dead Reckoning Part 1 kind of weird now. So, well, I guess it's just called Dead Reckoning now and not Dead Reckoning Part 1. But yeah, anyway, moving on from all that, in spite of, like, you know, some of the changes that this movie is going to have to go through, I was still really looking forward to this movie just because, like, you know, I'm a huge Mission Impossible fan, yeah. This movie was definitely one of my most anticipated movies of the whole year, yeah. I was really, you know, going into and hoping that, like, you know, that this would be, like, a banger conclusion to the series. But yeah, I went to see the movie there for myself yesterday as of me recording this. And yeah, going in, I saw the reviews. I kind of saw, you know, what people have been saying about it, but you know, I went into this movie, you know, hoping for the best, and having seen the film for myself now, what do I make of it personally? Well, okay, first of all, I'll just start by saying this. This is a good movie overall. Like, don't get me wrong. This is a good movie, okay? It's a good film. But there is a but. This is not the best movie in the series, in my opinion, yeah. Because overall, even though I had a mostly good time watching this, the movie has some issues, if I'm going to be honest, yeah. This is kind of one of those movies where it's kind of like, you know, it's good, but yeah, just be clear, it's a good movie overall, but it has some issues that kind of hold it back from reaching its full potential. But anyway, now getting into my thoughts on the final reckoning. So first off, I'll say this. Obviously, the cinematography in the movie is really, really good. Like, honestly, what do I really have to say there? Like, this movie is very well shot, honestly. Like, there's plenty of really good shots in this movie. In fact, honestly, in pretty much, like, all the Mission Impossible movies, that's kind of to be expected, you know, that there's going to be some really good camera work, some really good shots. But no, genuinely, I think there is some really nice shots in this movie. Like, I think particularly, like, a lot of the scenes where, you know, we're having these really insane stunts that Tom is doing, like, for example, the scene where he's in the sea, you know, having to go into the submarine, like, some of the shots, like, of him when he's in the ocean and stuff, I think they're really well shot, but, also I need to mention, like, the scenes where, like, he's on the planes and stuff, and, like, we're having this fight on the planes, yeah. I think all that is really well shot as well, because as well as just being, like, you know, utterly insane to watch, like, they're just really, really well shot, but, I feel like, honestly, with this franchise, that's kind of just something that you've come to expect at this point, but no, genuinely, I think overall this movie was really well shot, so yeah, I'll start off by saying that the cinematography is really good. Now, in terms of the film's editing, I'm gonna be honest, this is something that I'm a bit more mixed on. Yeah, now don't get me wrong, that's not to say that the editing in this one is, like, completely bad. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some scenes that I think are edited quite well, like, the underwater scene, the plane scene. A lot of those scenes I think are honestly well edited. But if I'm going to be honest, I think this is definitely one of the weaker movies in the series when it comes to the editing, which honestly I do think is a bit disappointing, but yeah, there's a few times in this movie where the editing honestly gets quite choppy. Like, there's scenes where, like, characters will be having conversations and, the movie is cutting from different shots, like, different characters and stuff, and honestly, I think it gets quite choppy, as I said, and even, like, scenes where, characters are talking and then, like, we're cutting to stuff being shown, like, what they're talking about. It gets very choppy during that part. And, another thing as well, the flashbacks in this movie, because I'm just gonna let you know, during particularly the first half of this movie, there is just a ton of flashbacks. Like, so pretty much like all the other movies in the series, and like, we're constantly cutting through like all these different like scenes and stuff. Like, it's as if the movie is like doing like a greatest hits throwback thing or something, where they're just replaying some like moments from the other movies in the series, some kind of notable scenes and stuff. And honestly, I do think it gets a bit excessive, if I'm going to be honest. And something else, I'm just going to say, there's a scene in this movie where Ethan basically gets inside this chamber thingy, or this little kind of coffin thingy, and he basically has a conversation with the entity, or the AI, who is like basically the main villain of the movie. And like, it's during this scene especially where, like, there's some really choppy editing, but not only that, but I'm just gonna warn for anyone who has photosensitive epilepsy, oh boy, that scene gets really flashy, because, like, the thing is basically electric. It's shocking Ethan and stuff, and, like, yeah, and, like, you just see all the flashing going on and stuff, and, yeah, honestly, it actually made me have to kind of look down a bit and stuff, because, trust me, it gets a bit excessive during that scene, if I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, so that's kind of something I was gonna say right off the bat, that overall, this movie is definitely not one of the best in the series when it comes to the editing. I definitely think they could have done a better job in that department, if I'm gonna be honest. In terms of the film's pace, now, I'm just gonna make it clear, this is by far the longest movie in the series. Like, it seems all these movies, they get longer and longer as they go on. Like, I'm pretty sure Dead Reckoning was like 2 hours and 45 minutes, But this movie has a runtime of 2 hours and 50 minutes, yeah. This is the longest movie in the series by far. So, like, I'm just gonna make that clear. Now, like, the thing is with these movies, even though they honestly do start, like, getting longer as they go on, I'm usually, like, honestly never quite bored by the runtime. Like, I remember watching Dead Reckoning in the cinema nearly 2 years ago, and honestly, I was actually surprised that the movie was as long as it was because I did not feel that runtime in the cinema. Now, I'll be honest with this movie, I did feel that near 3 hour runtime a bit. Like, I think particularly towards kind of the third act of the movie, like, you honestly do kind of start to feel that runtime a bit, but I will say I wasn't, like, too bothered by the runtime in this movie, honestly, because in spite of how long it was, like, I think overall the movie is still very engaging enough to where, like, you're able to just, kind of go along with it and stuff and kind of watch everything going down. Even in spite of the film's flaws, like, I think it's still, like, very engaging to watch, where, like, I don't think you'll be too bothered by the runtime. I do think alright during the third act it kind of does, start to feel a bit long, but I wouldn't say I was overall too bothered by the runtime in the movie, though. If I have to be honest, I do think that, like, some of this movie could have been cut down a bit. Like, honestly, I feel like I definitely would have trimmed it a bit in some areas, but overall, even though this definitely wouldn't be the best movie in the franchise when it comes to its pacing, like, in spite of how long it was, for the most part anyway, I didn't feel the runtime too much. But anyway, now in terms of the sounds and music, I will say, once again, the sound work, as always, is really good. Like, I mean, to be fair, like, the sound work in all these movies is honestly really good, but, yeah, I do think, like, there's some solid sound work in this, like, even, like, especially during, some of the underwater scenes and, like the airplane scenes, even some of the explosions that happen. Overall, I do think that it's, like, really solid sound work. So yeah, overall, I thought that the sound work was good in this movie, and honestly, I will say the music in this movie was very good as well. Like, I think once again, as always, Lorne Balfe did a great job with the score in this one. It's so great hearing, that iconic Mission Impossible theme, and even kind of some of the other, like, music tracks that we hear throughout the movie, I think are honestly really good as well. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say other than that, but yeah, overall, the sounds and music in the movie was very good, and, like, even, like, a lot of the visual effects in the movie were quite good as well. Even though, like, obviously I know a lot of this is done kind of practically and stuff, but plenty of the visuals that we do get in this movie are overall very solid, I would say. Now, in terms of the characters and the acting, like, obviously, I need to talk about Ethan Hunt himself, and yeah, overall I think like he's a solid protagonist in this movie, and like Tom Cruise is really good as always, like in the role, and not to mention performing all these stunts. But I think particularly in this movie, they kind of really, treat Ethan as if like, he's some kind of messiah figure, like, he's the best of men, he's the only one who's capable of, actually stopping this for good. I know, I feel like maybe we could delve a bit more into like kind of who he is, and this isn't just any responsibility, like literally the fate of the world is in his hands in this one. Like, I don't know, I feel like maybe we could delve a bit more into how kind of he himself as a person has to deal with it and stuff, but nonetheless he was still good in the movie, and yeah, what else can I say? Tom Cruise at over 60 years old doing these impressive stunts. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail about all the other characters in the movie because, trust me, we have a pretty big cast in this. Like, I will say, like, Ethan's team in this one, like, Grace, Benji, Luther, and, like, also, some new characters like Paris and Agent Davis, they join his team in this one. Like, I overall liked all of them as characters in this one for what focus they get. And like some of the other returning characters like Kittredge, Briggs, and even like one or two other characters, like we bring back Erica Sloan from Fallout, and even William Donlow from the very first movie. Like, I thought they were all like decent enough for the screen time that they get in this. And like I thought like Gabriel as a villain in this one, because he was the villain in the last movie, he's not really in this one like that much. Like, he's in it at the start, but then he kind of disappears until the film's climax. But when he is on screen, I still think he's a fun villain. Like, you can tell Esai Morales is just having a ton of fun in this role. But like even in this one, we do like have a kind of a bunch of like other kind of new cast members who appear in this movie. Like, we have some pretty notable names in this supporting cast. Like, we have the likes of Hannah Waddingham, Holt McCallany, Nick Offerman, Katy O'Brien. Honestly, they were solid enough for what they got, but I feel like I know one or two of them maybe could have had some more to do. Which also I know this is supposed to be about Ethan and stuff, but I know I just feel like some of these supporting players could have been given something a bit more interesting to do. Though I will say there is a role in this from Tramell Tillman, and overall I did quite like his role in this. Like, I actually thought he was a fun character for the screen time he has. But yeah, there's a lot of characters in this movie. I think overall the cast is decent in this for what we get. But yeah, I feel like there's kind of just a little too much going on with some of them to where they don't feel like they're properly fleshed out. But I think overall it's decent enough for what we get. Now, in terms of the plot for this one, so this movie pretty much carries on from the events of dead reckoning where they're after getting like some of the key, and they're basically having to like go down to the submarine where like Ethan kind of has to find the source code of the entity so that we can kill it and stuff. Yeah, that's kind of really our main plot for this one, and like, to be fair, I'll give it this, like, it's definitely a solid finale, I'll admit. Like, I think throughout the movie, you definitely feel, like, this entity's grasp, because ever since the events of the last movie, there's just been this uprising of the AI, and in this movie, you definitely feel that, you feel the stakes in this one, where like if Ethan, ends up failing this, then this could like doom the whole world as we know it. And like I do think they did a solid job of, actually kind of making us feel that world ending stakes. But yeah, overall like this movie is, an enjoyable action movie for sure. Like, I think overall it does pretty well, like, as a finale to the franchise. Like, some of the stunts in this one, I think, are honestly really good. I've already mentioned both the underwater scene and the airplane scene. Those two are definitely like the standouts of the whole movie. I feel, they're honestly just like really entertaining to watch and stuff. Like, I really enjoyed like those two scenes in particular. But like in terms of kind of where some of my issues with this film, like, 'cause I know I mentioned that even though I like this movie overall, I do kind of have some issues with it. Well, if I'm gonna be honest, I definitely liked the second half of this movie more so than the first half, because not that the first half of the movie is bad per se, like I do think the first half of the movie is decent, it's engaging to watch and it's really interesting everything that's happening, but my problem with the first half of the movie is that, as I mentioned earlier on, there's a ton of flashbacks in this movie to like a lot of the previous films. Trust me, like, during the first half of this movie, there's scenes where we have characters talking and we're just showing a bunch of flashbacks to a lot of the previous movies, kind of trying to connect some of these things together and stuff. I thought it was honestly a bit excessive, and I already mentioned as well how, like, the editing in this movie just gets quite excessive. Yeah, honestly, I just felt that, like, the first half of the movie could have been a bit better, because, like, we're just being shown all these flashbacks and stuff to the other movies, and with how like choppy the editing gets, I just feel it's a bit excessive. And again, that's not to say that it's bad or anything. Like, for what it's worth, I do think the first half of this movie overall is decent, but like I do honestly think that it kind of hurts the movie a bit, I feel. Now, to be fair, I do think the movie does pick up quite a bit during the second half, because there are one or two little issues I have during the second half of the movie, but I can honestly overlook some of that a bit because it is just a really, engaging second half with plenty of awesome action scenes and just wild stunts. But yeah, I overall just think that, like, even though the movie has a good plot. I just feel that more so the first half of the movie could have been better in terms of all the excessive flashbacks and stuff. So overall, a good plot just could have been better. And in terms of the narrative structure, I feel like the narrative structure in this one is just like a bit excessive and stuff, because like obviously we have our main plot where Ethan is kind of trying to track down, the source codes of the entity so he can put a stop to it and, like, prevent the world from, reaching this disaster and stuff. But then, like, also, you have kind of some other stuff going on with, like some of the other characters, like you have kind of the whole subplot with Ethan's team and kind of their whole mission and stuff, which overall I think does link into the main plot well. Like kind of some of this other stuff going on, like kind of focusing on kind of some of these like government leaders and stuff. I feel like maybe some of this could have been trimmed a bit. But like, there's even some things that the movie tries to do with a few of the characters that I honestly wasn't a fan of. Like I will say, there is something that happens to a certain character, like, close to kind of the beginning of the movie. Obviously, I won't say what it is for spoilers, but all I'll say is something does happen to a certain character, and honestly, I wasn't really a fan of it. I honestly felt that it was just really rushed what they did. Because like it wasn't previously established until this movie, and then once it's established, the movie just kind of rushes through it. I just really felt they could have executed that a lot better. And also, not long after that, we also get a twist involving one of the characters in the movie. I'm not going to say what the twist is, but when this twist was revealed in the movie, I won't lie, I was shocked. I was like, oh, what? I didn't see that coming. But honestly, though, I don't really know like if there was actually any need for that, because this reveal with this certain character, I just felt it didn't really add into anything like that important in the movie. So I don't know, I just don't know if it was exactly necessary, to be honest. But like overall, I think the narrative structure in this movie is decent, kind of when it focuses on the main plot of Ethan trying to stop the entity and his team having to go on this mission and stuff. But I just felt maybe they could have trimmed some of these plot points a bit, or at least kind of executed them into the main plot a lot better, I feel. So overall, a solid narrative structure, but just a bit flawed. But yeah, overall, even though I did have some issues with this movie, I did overall like Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Like, it's a very well shot movie, very enjoyable. There's really good sound design and music. There is like, some solid acting in it, and like there's loads of really impressive stunts. Like, as I've mentioned, the underwater scene and the airplane scene are the standouts by far. And like overall, I think like it's a good, conclusion to the series. And like I just overall enjoy it. It's kind of this like high stakes action film where, like, Ethan's trying to stop the ends of the world and stuff. it's definitely an enjoyable time. Overall, I just feel that, like, some of the flaws with this movie, like, with the excessive editing and kind of some of the flashbacks, I feel a lot of that could have been better executed, along with also one or two plot points I wasn't a big fan of. Like, overall, it's a good movie, but I just definitely feel the first half could have been a bit better. It definitely picks up during the second half, but yeah, again, I feel like had the first half of this movie just been, a bit better, then I feel I would have liked this more. Which overall, I still liked this movie in spite of my issues with it, but yeah, overall, I wouldn't call this my favorite in the series. Yeah, again, a good movie overall. I think it is, a good conclusion to the franchise. I think with the way this movie ends, it does, wrap up the series in a satisfying way. But I just feel overall as the movie goes, I just think this one could have been a bit better. Again, overall, a good time, just could have been a bit better. But anyway, with all that said, I'm going to give Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning a very strong 7 out of 10. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and bye.